very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us on the Twitter Jabs Part 2 this morning with me, Sandra Cope. Now, the subject matter for this discussion this morning is the increased prices on commodities and utility goods as well. In studio, I have a very special gentleman. He's an economist, Mr. Francis Muhire. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good to be here.
It's good to have you here. I have a lot of questions about this situation. I'm sure everybody else does out there. So let's jump right into it. Why still the high fuel prices?
That's a $64K question. And, you know, I want us to first go back to where we are coming from. You know, for example, last year, that was around June, July, when we were starting the new financial year. The government, brought in new, tax bills, and one of them was actually fuel, where, 100 shilling as a tax was imposed on per liter of, let's say, petrol. And by then, 1 liter of petrol was around 4,100.
Yes.
As of today, we had 5,000. So that was just last year. So by December last year, by December 2021, 1 liter of fuel, let's say petrol, was around 4,500. But you've seen, January coming in and fuel prices are, are going as high as 10,000. Yes. So you see already prices before this, when the Minister of Energy and Minister of Health introduced this new law that all the truck drivers had test for, for COVID. And we saw disruptions in the supply chains. In other words, there was too much, there was shortage, and yet demand remained constant. That's why we saw the prices going from 4,500 to around 10,000. But as I've told you already, even before that incident, prices were already high, only that people had not, realized it. So now that, the truck drivers issue has been cleared, now we've seen prices, dropping down from 8,000, 10,000, settling at around 5,000. Yes. Now, I want to tell you this, that I don't expect actually the price to go below 5,000. And 5,000 is not a market clearing price, by the way. So what does this mean? How come that the government has not done much? How come that the fuel prices are increasing without any explanation? Because this increment is or cannot be explained by the increase in oil prices on the global market, or the supply chain disruptions we have happening all over the world. This increment cannot be explained by those factors. So the question is, then why these high prices? And where is the government? This tells you it shows you the big problem you have in this country. One, we have more of the market and very little of the government. So in other words, when we adopted, a liberalized economy in 1994, after adopting the World Bank Structural Adjustment Program, and we opened our economy, the government completely left the economy to the private or the market forces of demand and supply. And you can't let the economy be run like that. So having a liberalized economy, doesn't mean that as the government you do little. No, you have to keep in check, monitoring.
You have to regulate.
Exactly, as a regulator. So the problem is, when you look at the industry, the oil industry, whether it is middle, up, or down, it's run by few firms. You talk of the dominant firms. You have Total, Total Energies. Yes. You have Shell. These are the biggest players in the market. So being few, they have powers to set the price and take advantage of the sleeping government. So they make what we call a cartel, or in other words, we have an oligopolistic market structure. You have very few sellers. In this case, we have about 2 firms and very many buyers. The fact that the government is not concerned or sleeping, they take advantage. They make a cartel, sit down and be like, this is how much we should charge, not basing on the cost inputs or other necessary factors.
So do you support these traders for an increment in prices because they are citing high fuel prices? That's why the commodities prices have also gone through the roof. Would you support them? Because it seems like a trickle-down effect.
Yeah, fuel prices remains one of the major key drivers of inflation in this country. They are very right. Once fuel prices are high, expect other goods or other services. Their prices to increase. Because remember, you need fuel to transport these goods. Even human beings have to move from here and there using fuel. So the price translates, and the burden is put to the final consumer. Take an example of, consumables, commodities, especially essential commodities, like cooking oil.
Yes.
We've seen the price increasing from 1 liter of cooking oil increasing from 9,000 to 12,500. A bar of soap, the price increasing from 4,000 last month to 5,000 today, just in a span of one month, you see. The government is quiet about this, and this is very dangerous because it drains, the consumer's disposable income. That is actually even for those few people who have that disposable income.
Other people don't.
Exactly. So it's really absurd, and the government is quiet about it. Even this 5,000 we are settling to, it is still abnormally high. If you factor in all the factors necessary, because for example, the last time I checked, last night I checked the price of Brent, which is the best crude oil on the international market, the one we consider. London Brent's price was around $96, dollars, because the global economy is trying to bounce back, recover. But still, that cannot explain these high fuel prices in the country. Uganda. Yes.
Well, some other people are saying, how come other local commodities, and we read this on the Twitter Jabs one, like cooking oil and soap that is actually made right here at Mukwano, why are those prices high, yet they are locally made?
Remember, some of the input raw materials I imported from abroad. That is one factor, you see. It's not that those which are produced here. There are a few commodities that are produced here and we use entirely 100%, the raw materials
from here.
But also you have the other factor, you have the speculators who want to take advantage. They're like, oh, fuel prices are increasing, so we expect prices of certain goods to increase. So they take advantage of that. If they have powers to do so, if let's say they are the main suppliers in the market, they can influence the price, then they speculate by doing that and increase the prices. Or even hoard in this case.
Yes, hoarding. Exactly.
Just like you saw fuel was being hoarded, because you have few players in the market, they can decide to hold back on the supply so that the prices shoot up. The demand, yes. Yeah, because demand, remember, will always remain constant. And actually, in this case was actually increasing because, remember, we're coming from, lockdown going into full, opening of the economy. Yes.
Well, how can these utility goods and other goods, how can they be regulated? Because if we track back, like you said, I remember when the president said that food should not be expensive when they imposed the first lockdown. Even sanitizer was going for 3 times its price. So how can these utility goods be regulated? Because it seems like we keep on going round this merry-go-round. What can the government do to make sure?
First of all, politicians, I don't trust politicians. They are traders of false hope. They will tell you this shouldn't be like this, but they are not doing anything about it.
What's on ground is quite different.
Exactly. So, one, what should be done, in this case, the government has to come out as a regulator very strongly. I repeat, very strongly. When the market forces, you can't just handle them, with a soft hand. No, you have to come out strongly. But also, however much you have a liberalized economy, you cannot come out and say, petrol stations should charge this much. No, it doesn't work like that. You just intervene, you influence, most especially indirectly. We have the national fuel reserves in Jinja, which were built in 1970s during Amin. By then Uganda's population was around maybe even less than 10 million. Today we are 43. We've never expanded those national fuel reserves. But even small they are compared to the demand we have today, they have been abandoned. You get the problem?
Yes.
Those national fuel reserves were built or put in place just in the case of these external shocks. Because remember, you have no control over these external shocks. You know, for example, if like now you have any time Russia might get, in war with Ukraine, and then you have USA, European, not all of involved, you're going to see a disruption in supply of fuel. And we're anticipating that. So the government would be like, what can we do in this case? Now, refill the national fuel reserves, expand their capacity. You can also go beyond that. As a government, you can have national petrol station chains all over the country. If people are finding, let's say you have that chain of petrol station owned by the government, if it's providing cheap or fair price, everyone will run to these fuel stations. And even these other ones, other competitors, whether it's Shell or Total, they also adjust their price. So you see how the government will influence indirectly. Yes. Without commanding, because our economy is an open, our kind of economic system is open or liberalized. It's not command. You can't tell them, sell price at, sell fuel at this price. So that's one way. And
the common man, the Ugandan common man or woman, what can they do in such a situation?
Well, in this case, a common Ugandan, this is beyond. There's nothing much they can do about it. You see, during elections, when you look at the public mechanism choice, you have people who, because we have a democratic process, or in this country, you elect leaders. These politicians are the ones who are going to make key decisions for you. So at this moment, a common man can't do anything except trying to minimize or to reduce the expenditure. They have to try to, for example, if you've been traveling up country, any time, any weekend, then you won't be traveling that much. Yes. For a common man, maybe who owns a small car here in Kampala, my friend, you need to park and maybe jump on a border B. That's the best you can do. But the problem, if the government is not doing much, the politicians are not doing much, the MPs are quiet about this, And remember, the civic space is very limited. You cannot go out there to protest. You know what will happen. Police will be waiting for you. So the only thing you can do is to be careful and make sure next time during elections, you vote right. You vote for ideas, not handouts. Because these politicians are taking us to an undesired destination.
With parting words, what would be your parting words to politicians watching and Ugandans at large concerning this situation?
For me, this message goes to the key decision makers in this country. And my message is like this. However much you don't spend on fuel, because the government is taking care of it, think about the common person. Think about the people that gave you this power. It is the common person, these voters that gave you power. Please serve them, not yourself. Thank you.
That is quite profound. Thank you, sir. That was Mr. Francis Muhire, and he's an economist, and he was telling us about the situation of increased commodity prices in relation to the skyrocketing fuel prices in the country. Well, that was all with me on the Twitter Jabs to Sandra Cope, but don't go anywhere because we'll be right back. Don't blink.